stuff going on. I'm getting ready for irrigating today. It has been hot and dry, man. Wildfires all over the place. I don't suspect any foul play or anything, but there are some interesting things going on up to our friends up north in Canada. If you're into conspiracy theories, it appears. Someone that has a background in fire and kind of understands how they start and what rate of spreads can be expected in particular weather events and such, to see the number of fires that started instantly at the same time, well, it's a little bit suspect, isn't it? Now, why is Canada being burned up? Who knows? Who knows? Who cares? No one in America really thinks too much about Canada other than being America's hat. So, a package arrived in the mail. I was going to share this with you guys, see what you think. An innovative product that I have never seen anything like it. I was showing this to my friend, fellow warband member, and he said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. What would you think about a bulletproof shield? Level 3A. Kind of interesting, huh? And it's big, pretty good size if you look at it. Level 3A, so what does that mean? That's going to mean that it's going to stop anything up to, well, basically handgun rounds, as well as, they tell us 12-gauge shotgun. Now, whether or not you would want to be on the end of this, of a 12-gauge shotgun slug, would be another matter entirely, wouldn't it? I think we could probably expect a broken arm or elbow, but better than having your face removed, I guess. So this was kind of interesting. They sent a letter here. I was just kind of skimming through it before we started the stream, that made some interesting points, that had quite some interesting data on home intrusions. So Jason over at Premier, he said in this letter that approximately 1.7 million home invasions happen each year in the U.S. 1.7 million. And in 1/4 of those, or 25%, the intruder is armed. So 25%, 75% not armed. Now, I don't know how reliable these are. How many are not being reported? So I think as a general rule, whenever you're dealing with the government, it used to be you could pretty much just double it, and then you'd have closer to the truth. So if the government says that they are paying $1 trillion for the B-3 bomber or what have you, you can expect that they've inflated that twice, right? They actually paid 500. But the truth of the matter now, I think, is probably you could take a 10x. So if they tell you that inflation is 1%, you can pretty well tell that it's going to be 10%. So going off of that kind of rule of thumb, I think we get closer to the truth. 1/4 of those invasions are armed. And what percentage would you say of those 1/4 that are armed in home invasions, what percentage would you say is using a handgun? Well, he says 97% of the time. So 97% of the time. So what are the chances of you having a home invasion? And in that home invasion, what is going to be used against you and how often? It kind of helps you to do that. So that's good information to determine what is going to be adequate for you and your family for body armor. Because if you're making choices, we all have to make choices. Everything is about compromise, Everything is about compromise. So I have one of the members of our war band we're getting him into moto. So he's been riding Jack's old bike, and he's starting to look at equipment and trying to decide on what to get for himself. So the topic of motorcycle boots came up. Well, which motorcycle boot should I get? It's always the question. Well, it depends, right? You always start with, what is your budget? Well, he told me his budget, and so there are what he can have and there are what he can't have. So I explained to him, well, for that budget, I would look at this. I said, okay, that's fine. But if I wanted to pay a little bit more, well, what would I get? Well, then you're going to graduate up to this, and it's going to be 3 to 4, maybe 5 times the price. Well, how do you justify that? Well, again, $150 motorcycle boots are not the same as $550 motorcycle boots. Yes, they'll both do the same thing. They'll both get you going up on the road. But if you get serious about it, and this becomes a lifelong dream, or a lifelong hobby, then sometimes you can justify in buying or paying more for something. You know, when you buy the $550 boots, what are you getting? Well, you're getting a whole lot better experience. You're getting way better safety protection, and you have a boot that's probably be the last boot you buy because it'll be completely rebuildable, or your $150 boot. You know, so it's all about compromises. This sort of thing, personal protective equipment, body armor, night vision, firearms, that sort of thing, falls into that same category. So the point I'm making here is I'm kind of working out of my own mind. Is this a viable option? Is this a viable option for Proho that maybe doesn't have the ability to invest in body armor for the whole family, but also wants some security, doesn't plan on going out and engaging with anyone? You know, locking, the best thing you can do in a situation like that is to get your family into one room and watch the door. And anything that comes through the door that is not a friendly, you know what to do, act accordingly. So having something like this is big coverage. Like I could, I have I wear a 44-inch jacket, 44-inch, whatever that means, so it's on the larger side, shoulders-wise. But even, with a larger torso, that's a lot of coverage. I would imagine if someone's slinging lead at you, you could probably get pretty small. For people talking about being able to hide behind a pretty small tree, there's a lot of truth to that. But this is it. So the weight, and I don't know the cost. I would be interested, if this is available, maybe one of the middlemen can run over to Premier, drop a link in, and see what the cost is of this thing. But the weight is under 4 pounds, 3.8 pounds, and it's actually thinner than an iPhone. As you said, they're 5 millimeters. So I don't know what that means. Millimeter, I believe, stands for the metric system. That doesn't help me. But I would say probably, it looks like about 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch in thickness, and very light, 3.8 pounds. It's got a hard loop on the back, right there. Kind of looks like a door pull. It's all plastic. And then you have an adjustable armband here to fit various different arm sizes or clothing requirements. I guess this is the type of thing you're probably going to set one time, and I think that strap could be improved. I think we need a good solid one-hand option. There should have been a loop. There should be a loop through there that you could pull and cinch down. This double strap deal here is not. I'm not a big fan of that. That's kind of silly. These are aluminum. Yep, no, plastic maybe? Can't tell. Is it cold? Oh, it's metal. Yeah, it's metal. Must be aluminum hardware. Very interesting. Level 3A. I like it. This would be something that would be easy, kind of a one and done. Be easy thing to put under the bed. If you did need to go out into your house, if someone had broke a window, was in the house, this would be a pretty good thing to hide over. You have to give credit to the elders, right? What did the men that were fighting hand to hand back in the day, fighting for their life, what did they use? They used shields, didn't they? I sure have seen a lot of that in history, so various sizes, but this is kind of more of maybe a large buckler. Very cool. I like to see that. I like to see stuff, the guys thinking about us and our needs rather than just military all the time. Okay, goodness. Let me get I lost my chat again here. Let me start over. I think we had a... Okay, got it. I got it up. So what do you think of that shield, gentlemen? Is that something you'd be interested in, or do you think that's just a novelty? I think the reality, there's a lot of us that have maybe considered or even went to bed at night having your body armor nearby, right? Or having it on. I even know some people that have it on a plywood carrier or kind of a stand that they've built where they have their whole kit. I think was commonly done. Maybe some of the special forces guys did that or built kind of a plywood dummy where you could hang everything, because there's quite a bit of weight. And unless you buy like a super skookum hanger, it'll just collapse most hangers when you start hanging body armor on them. What I do, and the body armor hangers, I found the prices to be ridiculously crazy for what it is. You go to the scuba market and you buy yourself an SCBA, BCA. I get the SCBA. SCBA stands for self-contained breathing apparatus. That's what we use in the fire department. CBA, I don't know. I'm not much into scuba diving, but they have heavy gear and they sell for a lot cheaper hangers that you can hang your body armor, your plate carrier on if you want to hang it just on a normal closet pole. But really, I mean, to be honest with you, you can think about this or plan in your war game in your mind. Okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to strap on my helmet and then I'm going to grab my PVS 31s and then I'm going to go and open the safe and I'm going to get out my my nighttime fighting carbine that's going to have the maul on it and all the super high-speed stuff. And it will definitely, all those electronics are definitely going to have the batteries in there and charged, and they will work because I'm very diligent about that, right? It said nobody ever, right? Is that realistic that when you're woke up from a dead sleep and you're confused, that you're going to have all of this game plan and that you're just going to and just roll in and start clearing rooms? You know, you may think that. I probably have thought that in the past, but I got a real reality, a dose of reality when the sheriff came. You know, I just installed my Simply Safe system in the shop, and it was the first night, and I set a sensor wrong or something wrong, and I think the cat. Anyway, the sheriff shows up at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, like after a deep sleep, you know, and he's pounding on the door. And I woke to this, and the door is pretty close to my bedroom. And I was really surprised at how flustered I was and how ill-prepared I was to deal with that situation, completely surprised by something. And it wasn't even a bad guy, it was just someone knocking on my door to follow up on the alarm. So that was really eye-opening for me. I mean, I was like, what was going on? I was confused, and where are my glasses? And I didn't have any shoes, and you know, I didn't put proper clothing by the, you know, there was a lot of things, there were a lot of mistakes made that were obvious to me. Some things were done right, but many things were done wrong. So this really dispelled this notion that, yeah, you're going to jump right out of bed and put all this high-speed gear on. You're not going to do that whatsoever. You're going to be lucky. And that's why you want to keep it simple, beloved. A nightstand freedom dispenser, you know, whether that be a carbine or, you know, a handgun, should be simple to use. And you should understand it very, very, very well. That's why the Glock is so good for that. No decockers, no safeties, no exotic fire sequences or anything, you know, fire controls, whatever. Just simple. Just pick it up and it goes. Have a light on it too, man. Just one less complexity. Like, I mean, the idea that you're going to grab your Surefire and, you know, you're going to do the old Asu Bayat or whatever his name is, you know, the old school 80s method. Why would you do that? You haven't practiced with it. You're not going to be very good at it. I don't practice with it. But what I am going to be good at is slapping a Surefire X300 on that rail and have everything in one unit, a grab and go that's going to work, that you know how to work with an intuitive switch. So it just seems to me, in that particular situation, if I was really fearful that someone was in my house and there was going to be some sort of an encounter, again, a 25% chance that that person is going to be armed, and that's with a handgun. A 25% chance. So you say, well, that's not very much. You know, what's 25% chance? Well, would you take your daughter, your little kid, strap her in the car seat day after day after day, knowing that there was a 25% chance you're going to get in a car wreck? You know, so I mean, it can happen. You can't look at it that way. It seems to me anyway. But grabbing the shield might be an option. So just so you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's good or not. I just got it, opened it. You guys are seeing it as I'm seeing it, and we can talk about that. We have a super chat from our friend Dom Beeps. Shout out to you, Dom. Welcome. Good to see you here. Dom writes this: my wife and I just closed on our first home, making me an official AMHO. That would be amateur homeowner. Yeah, yes. And we, you know, we need to do some T-shirts, gentlemen. So someone very clever in the comment section, it was yesterday or the day before, wrote something that I thought was so clever that I wrote it down on a piece of tape and I put it on on my apron. Right there, you can see that. I thought that that was pretty good. Pro-Ho Faux Show. Now, we need to have that on the t-shirt, but I'm not, well, I'm not very good at drawing and such. So if you are the creative type or know someone and can do something kind of cool with Pro-Ho Faux Show, a take on that, whether it be a t-shirt, hat, or patch, submit it. Submit it over to the middlemen, and we'll be sure that you are adequately compensated with a goodie bag from me, as well as, of course, the t-shirt or whatever item that we put that on there. But I thought that was pretty funny, pretty good. I think that these are good, these acronyms. AMHO is quite good. That would be amateur homeowner. AMHO with a capital A and the capital H. I think that's quite good. I'm going to steal that and adopt that. So thank you, Dom. Dom also writes, thank you for your inspiration. What is the official fire extinguisher of Pro-Ho? God bless and act accordingly. Well, that's simple. There's only one, and that's Amerex. I'll grab it and demonstrate for you. Amerex makes the best fire extinguishers, in my opinion, and people don't buy them because they're more expensive. Oh, goodness. See, I got my own fire extinguisher next to the forge, and I can't get it off the wall here. The difference is if you look at an Amerex, you know, whatever size you get, AMEREX, this is the one that you want, Pro-Ho. You want to have this, you want to have one of these, if you have the means, if you can get a big one like this. How many pounds is this one? I don't remember. It's a big boy. It's professional homeowner grade, this one right here. But to have this in your home in a central location, have one probably close to the kitchen. It's most likely you're going to have a fire by the wood stove or by the kitchen, that it is going to start in one of those two areas. So have it in probably your guest closet, entry closet if you don't want to look at it. Make sure your kids understand how it works, how to pull the pin, you know, etc. But Amerex is going to be better because of the way that it's made and the contents. You know, rather than everything being like the pickup tube and everything being plastic, it's going to be all metal. All the top and the gauge here, all USA made, going to be metal, high quality, reliable. It's going to be there when you need it. So having, you know, if you're going to put a fire extinguisher in like a truck or an RV where it's in a kind of a dynamic environment where things are bouncing and moving around, you know, you don't want plastic internals. You don't want this thing to be in the red and out of pressure because of the low quality seals that they used in China where it leaks out and when you need it, it's not there for you. So if you're going to do it right, buy the best when it comes to life safety. I don't mess around with life safety. Now, if we're talking about hobbies and such, you can't always get what you want, but sometimes there's this, you got to go for what's good. Personal defense items, I think a man's particular shoes, clothing, you should spend money on your bed. You should spend money on what you put on your feet. You know, as a granddad used to say, you're in one or you're in the other. You're either in your boots or you're in your bed. So why are you skimping there? You should have the best you could afford. My favorite bed and the best bed I've ever slept in is the one that Mrs. W and I have. And we both say the same thing every night. When we get into bed in the evening, either one of us or usually both of us says, best bed in the world. The best bed in the world. There's no equal to it. The Swedish Tempur-Pedic. It's my thing, man. It is. That's why I don't travel anymore. That's why I can't hardly abide going to filthy hotels anymore, because it's so good, it's so comfortable, you know, it's just amazing. They're expensive, but they're worth it. And don't think, I used to think that I could ball on a budget with that, because I would look at the Tempur-Pedics and I would see, oh, those are very expensive, far out of my price range. And so that I thought, well, I'll just, you know, it's that memory foam, you know, and all memory foam's the same, right? I'll just go and buy a topper from Costco and throw that bad boy on my cheap mattress and I'll have the same thing. It's not. It's not. I did that for years. My whole family did that for years. It's not. We have a super chat from Roman Carlisle. Shout out to you, Roman. Roman has a question. He says, I was impressed when I saw the Spartan Harsey in your short recently. Could you make a knife collection video? No, I'm not. I love knives, but I'm not a collector. I am a loser of knives. I have lost more knives than most collectors have in their collection. And so a man has to know his limitations, and it's just too heartbreaking for me. So the only knives that I really have are from the kindness of friends that have mailed them to me or given them to me. My 940, you know, that I lost so many Benchmades. The last 940 that I had was a gift to me from Mrs. W. I had resolved to stop wasting money on expensive knives, and everything I have has been a direct gift. So I only have a handful that I like. The Heresy, the Benchmades, of course, Spyderco. Love Spyderco. Have a few of those, but I don't know. I probably have maybe a dozen, and they're not particularly that interesting. I don't know. Maybe just for the members, but I don't think I'm going to get into it. You know, that genre is kind of done, to be honest with you. That was a lot of fun to watch 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Nothing Fancy and Cutlery Lover and all those OG guys, but anymore, I don't know. It just doesn't interest me anymore. But I do love knives. Thank you, Roman. I'll consider it. Maybe we'll do it for the members. Why no shoes? I'm of the opinion that the more connection that we can make, the more we can go out and touch grass, as the kids say, with nature and away from things that are fake, social media, computers, screens, electronics, all that sort of thing. I think that it's better for you. I think that there's something I think that there's importance to be a person to be grounded and connected to the earth. You know, we're told that all of our thoughts and ideas are electrical stimulations, and that chemical, all these things affect mood and such. And it seems to me that if you don't want electricity to flow properly, if you don't want to conduct electricity or make a perfect circuit, then you interrupt the ground. You interrupt the ground of something that there's nothing that's going to go on. If you cut the ground wire on your car, it's not going to start. If you cut the ground wire on your skill saw that you plug in, it's not going to run. It needs that to continue. And we're told that we're living in this, everything operates that way, including us. So what's the best insulator for electricity? What do they use? It's rubber or glass. Rubber or glass. And what are all the shoes made out of? Those shoes are essentially insulating us from the earth, from everything that's real and natural. That's one portion of it. The other portion of it is I don't like having baby sissy feet. I don't like not being strong, whatever environment I fall into. You find yourself, you get in a fight, you're fighting for your life at a particular situation. It's common to lose your shoes. Are you one of the non-pro-hos that go cruising around in flip-flop? Flip-flops have no business on pro-hos feet. Roman soldiers, all soldiers of time, one of the things that they paid a lot of attention to, even soldiers today, what do they say? You've got to take care of your feet. And the way that they made shoes for the Romans, the hobnailed sandals, they could get traction. If you don't have traction, or you don't have mastery over your feet or your stance, then how effective can you be in grappling a situation or a fight, or if you need to get away from something dangerous? A car is careening to you. You're going to be stepping and fetching and flip-flops, tearing your toenails off, falling. There's just a lot of reasons. I think it would be a good idea to train yourself for all sorts of situations, and to have soft baby feet is not going to serve you in a situation like that. Plus, it feels good. It feels good to be, and it strengthens the feet. You have feet, the arch is one of the strongest things known to man. That's why the Romans built it in the aqueducts, and it's still used today, bridges. That's why you have a crown in a flatbed trailer, because that is a very strong member, the arch. And the arch is built into your foot. It's meant to be, there's a lot of bones and muscles in your feet. Those need to be worked and used. And if you look at the feet of someone who's never worn shoes, and you look at the feet of a Western man, you're going to see two different things. Look at someone who, like an Aboriginal or a native of some sort, that has never worn shoes and always been on their feet. Their feet are very wide and the toes are very splayed out. That's for stability. stability and strength and to be able to just to have a good stable platform. Where you take a foot that's been bound inside of shoes its whole life, and a lot of you dudes are wearing cowboy boots. Now, I love a good cowboy boot. I wear cowboy boots as well, but decorative, ceremonial, for things, events and such. I'm not a fool to be out walking around in cowboy boots all the time. What's that do to your natural foot position? It crunches them up into a little point. Cowboy boots were designed for a specific purpose. The heel and the toe were designed to fit into what do you call them? Stirrup. A stirrup. And then the heel was to prevent it from passing all the way through. This was a tool for men that were fighting on horseback or riding or working on horseback. They're cool and all. I get that. And, there's a whole culture around them and stuff. And I'm not denying any of that. But to wear them all the time at work and such or truck driving, you're destroying your feet. You're basically foot binding yourself into the opposite shape of what God intended our feet to be. You're making yourself more unstable and weaker. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I want to have a strong foot. I want those muscles to be strong. I want to be athletic. I want to be as good as I can be, and getting as close back to nature, from the grounding to the foot health, just to the strength, to the having tough feet. There's so many things about it, and I just like it. It also, it connects you to your environment. I like to be connected to my environment. I like to be spending so much time online where everything is, or half of everything of what you see is fake and not real and man-made. To get out into nature, when you're walking, one perfect example, when you're walking around barefoot, like in the shop, one thing that I've always enjoyed about just being plugged into your environment and what's going on, just another, you're having, your senses are taking in information, and then you're making decisions based on that all the time, from what you hear and see and feel, and of course, right? I find it quite interesting in that just in the wintertime, like walking around, I work and walk around the shop barefoot, I can feel the difference in the slab and how close it is to the wood stove, where it's all warmed up, versus if I go over to the main man door where it's cold. It's not I don't know that it's beneficial in any way, but it's just interesting, just another thing that just makes you aware of your environment and being connected to that. I like it. God just moved upon my heart. I just felt really impressed to take off my shoes. And I started doing it in the grass, and then last summer I would go down and take my laptop, and I would edit videos down by the river and take my shoes off and put my feet in the water, and I just developed a real love for it, and I enjoy it, and I feel better. I feel stronger and more connected and better grounded. So is there science to it? Well, there is, but I'm not your Google, so go look it up and determine if you want to. But there's no downside to it. I think all of us could have a little toughen up a little bit. But I don't take it to an extreme. I'm not going to be out dirt biking or anything like that. But when I can, I try to. We have, oh great, thank you, Overton. I missed Super Chats yesterday because, well, I'm an old boomer, and I wasn't able to manage them, to be honest with you. I wanted to focus on what John was saying. We had a rare opportunity to talk to him, really insightful, super smart guy. And I think I'm the one that killed the live stream. I have two iPhones going. I've got one I'm shooting on here, and I was trying to manage it. I was thinking, well, I'll shoot video. I'll do the dual stream on the iPhone, and then I'll just read the comments, the Super Chats here on my other phone. And when I tried to wake up the second phone, I think what happened is it canceled the live stream and tried to reopen it on a second phone, thinking that it was going to follow. I don't know, whatever. I think it was probably my fault. So after that, and I lost John and had to create a new stream, I did not even want to touch it because I didn't want that to happen again. I thought that was kind of disrespectful to John. So I thought it better just to let them go, and hopefully we could address that today. And we will. Let me get through these, and then I'll jump over to Signal. I have the right phone, yeah, and I can do that. Thank you, Overton. Man, good call on that. Mr. Jake G. Shout out to Jake. Jake has a comment. He says, I read once that you should never skimp on 3 things. I'm curious to hear what the third thing is. I've heard 2 that separates you from the earth: your bed, your boots, and your tires. Yeah, that's really good. I'm going to adopt that. Tires. Yeah, tires, exactly. Europeans really have it figured out. I didn't understand. I understand now. There is no such thing, beloved, as an all-season tire. Maybe if you live in Los Angeles, you could have an all-season tire where it doesn't change that much. But if you live in an environment that goes extreme winter and extreme summer, meaning snow, rain, ice, and hot weather, there isn't one tire to do it all. So it's a hard thing to do, man. I mean, everything costs so much money now, and it's hard to do to go buy 2 sets of tires for your truck. It's hard to buy 1 set of tires now that tires are $300, $400, $500 a piece. If you've got a big truck and you're running 10-ply load range E's, and you want to buy something of some size, getting up into 35, 36, and that's not uncommon for new trucks. You can put tires that big on factory trucks now. Those tires are pushing $500, $600 a piece. So you're going to put those on and run summer tires, and you have to buy another set of wheels and go through the whole thing. So not everyone's going to be able to do that. But here's my take on that and the way I look at it. I'm a professional homeowner. I have got a lot of driving experience. I would consider myself to be a good driver. I understand traction. I understand tire compounds. I understand how my differentials work. I understand all these things. I can drive safely and get where I want to go regardless of the tires because I have this knowledge. Most of you have this knowledge, right? But when it comes to our wives and girlfriends that may not be car people, new drivers, 16-year-old daughter, 16-year-old son, put them in a car where you live in a bad environment with a summer tire on there that's not going to be reliable, that's not going to hold a corner, that's going to give them make it highly likely that they crash or slip or have a bad experience. That's where I draw the line. I'm willing to take the risk myself, manage the risk, something like that. But when it comes to kids and such, like Jack's tires, Jack's car, all that stuff, it's going to be the best I can afford. And people will say, well, Jack should pay for his own tires. Well, maybe not. Mrs. W and I look at it very differently. If the children are actively pursuing their studies, meaning that they have a full schedule, extracurricular activities, that they're involved in sports, athletics, they're involved in, Jack is involved in national speech and debate at a very high level. It takes a lot of time. He has a full schedule. He's working a full-time job with his school to do what he needs to do to compete well at nationals for that. So that has taken up a lot of his summer. So when we were talking about jobs and work for boys, of course, I'm the first one to want, and Jack wants to have a job as well. But what we told him is that we will support you until you are done with this, and then you will be on your own to do your own things. I'm not going to be buying you cars and tires and this sort of thing when you're 18 plus, out of school, no longer doing these sort of things. That's going to be a different matter. But in the meantime, 16, 17, 18-year-old drivers, I think it's an obligation as a husband, father, to get them in the best you can, the safest environment you can. I don't know why we went there, what we were talking about. Oh, tires. Yeah, Jake. Thank you, Jake. Yeah, you're right. I'm going to add that. We'll add that to the list. That'd be the official, is that you want to, don't skimp on the 3 things, on your tires, on your boots, shoes. And that includes shoes. Don't wear cheap shoes, beloved. And don't wear cheap sunglasses either. Either wear sunglasses or don't wear sunglasses. I'm starting to wonder if wearing sunglasses, if that's something that is that could have a negative effect. Now, I have looked into this a little bit and found out that it's actually the worst thing you can wear is wear cheap sunglasses. The way that they filter light and such, I've been told this. I believe there's probably something to this. There's quite a few studies on this. But if you look back at pictures of folks, you go back to a beach picture from the 50s and 60s, even the 70s, you're going to see 2 things in those images that you will not see today. It's astonishing. Go look at it. Go Google a generic picture of a California beach in 1968, 70. You're going to see, 1, people are not wearing sunglasses. Probably 3, they're not wearing sunscreen as well. And that's a whole nother discussion. Where is all that going? What is it? You put bottles. Mrs. W is a fair redhead. She lives and dies by sunscreen. She was that young girl that wore the T-shirt at the public pool with the freckles and all that. You know the type, the pasty white one. My son Jack has inherited some of that. He's so white, we accuse him of being translucent or blue even. Sunscreen. But what you won't see in those images are people are not wearing sunglasses, probably not wearing sunscreen, and they're not obese. Almost no one's obese. Very interesting. That was back in the time when fat shaming was not only allowed but encouraged. So maybe there were plus-size people that they just avoided the beach because they didn't want to be bullied and ridiculed. We have a super chat from the Gnostic Academy, 1111, my favorite number twice. I was thinking the other day we were talking about numbers, and my favorite number has always been 11. And I thought, where did I get that? Where did that whole thing start? Well, we had recently come in possession of some of the old family photo albums. And in these photo albums were several pictures, and this would have been probably the late 70s, when I was probably 10, 11, 12, 13, or I raced BMX bikes. And I hadn't seen any of these pictures. I haven't seen them for I don't know if I've ever seen them. But it was really fun to see the starting gate, and my old bike was in there. I've been thinking, as you become an old boomer, you start to get nostalgic towards the things that you had in your past. And I think maybe nostalgia is even more prominent right now because it harkens back to what we may perceive as a better time or a simpler time than what we're living in now. And there is some comfort in that, to revisit the way things used to be. I've all of a sudden, the last year or so, just had kind of a nostalgia for maybe replicating my old BMX bike that I had when I was 8, 9, and 10 that I used to race on the weekends. And to have these images of that bike was super cool because from that, I pretty much knew, I could remember. I've always been into gear, and I've always liked high-end, nice gear, and BMX bike racing was no different. I've always been this way. And I remembered most of what I had on there, from the tough neck and the three-piece cranks and the array of alloys and most everything. But having the pictures, I could go back there and I could actually recreate the entire thing piece by piece. So I thought that might be kind of a cool thing to do. Thank you, Gnostic. But the point being, 1111 is a super chat number. My plate number back in the days when I was racing BMX bikes was 11. And I'd forgotten that until I saw the plate and the picture. It was really cool. The Gnostic Academy says this: I can speak for many when I say we really appreciate your candor, honesty, and experience. It is so refreshing in a world where so many men acting like damn children. These streams are gold. God bless. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. Yeah. Well, it's not difficult. It's just, all you got to do is just speak truth. Just speak truth in a world of lies. And so devoid is truth in our life that truth has a certain particular ring to it. Something about that. God has put that in our heart. Our Lord says that he often refers to himself as the shepherd, or even the good shepherd. And he refers to those who are following in the way, us, professional homeowners, those of us here that are following or doing our best to follow Christ as the sheep. I am the shepherd and sheep. And the sheep know me and they know my name. If I call my sheep, they will hear me. They know my voice, they recognize me, and they will respond to them. If another calls them, another shepherd that is not their own, he may call them and try to get them to come over into his fold, but they will not, because he's a stranger. They don't know him. They only respond to the voice of the shepherd. I think, beloved, that the law of God is written upon the hearts of those who love and trust God, and that truth is the cornerstone or the foundation of God's government. Truth is the opposite of the adversary, which is lies. God even tells us in the Old Testament that Lucifer, or the light bearer, as he was known before he fell, was the father of lies, implying that lies or deceit didn't even exist in God's kingdom until it was invented by the adversary. And that's very interesting in that can you imagine living in such a wonderful kingdom or environment in the presence of the Almighty where you didn't even know what a lie was? Like a child, you were ignorant to it. Everyone was honest, upright, and if a man said something or a being or created whatever that may be, it was as if it came from the mouth of God. That was the foundation of his government. So when the lie, deceit, was introduced, before the fall of Satan, this was something that was unknown. I think about that like right now, it just dawned on me. I've often wondered how convincing the adversary must have been to be able to convince 1/3 of God's created angels to side with him and to fight against God. 1/3 of his children. That would be like a family, like if you were a husband and you had 3 children, one of them turned against you and became your enemy and tried to destroy you in your own family. Preposterous, right? Hard to imagine. And why would they be willing to do that? Well, they didn't know what lies were, never been exposed to it. And so when the adversary, Lucifer, when he was so bold and conceived of the idea to speak a non-truth, maybe the people or maybe those that sided with him ultimately were kind of bamboozled by that, thinking that whatever someone says is automatically true and the truth when it was not. And I don't know. Maybe they did know. I don't know the situation. But on a side note, that's always a comfort to those of us who have raised children in a Christian home that may have went astray, that didn't turn out good or went off the tracks, went off the rails. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to stay there. Continue to pray for them, but don't beat up on yourself. Don't feel bad that you can focus on, if I would have done this or if I would have done that, things would have been differently. I wouldn't have all this regret. If I'd spent more time, praying with them. We could all say that. None of us are perfect here. We did the best that we could, I hope. We did what we could do at the time. God, being perfect, lost 1/3 of his children. They went away from him, didn't trust him anymore, became an enemy of him. So it happened to him. Are we better than God? So I'm just saying, don't be too hard on yourself if you find yourself in that situation. And none of that is permanent. Oftentimes, it's my experience that, and the good book tells us this, it's written in the Old Testament. I believe it's in the Old Testament. If you train up a child in the way, he won't quickly depart. Meaning that if you raised a child with the Christian fundamentals and understanding, even though he leaves it when he may leave the house and turn his back on God, it's very, very likely that seed that's been planted will come back and he will come back to the fold. He will be the prodigal. We have a super chat from Charles Howd. Shout out to you, Charles. Charles writes, mean to love the demon, in Greek, to love. Means to love the demon. In Greek, to love. Man, if you're getting into languages, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here. I think what he's trying to make a reference here of, I don't really know. Shout out to you, brother, for being smarter than the rest of us. Maybe you could give a clarification. Thank you, Charles. I sure appreciate that. Charles is obviously a learned man. It is not a prerequisite. Don't worry, beloved. It is not a prerequisite to have a good understanding or a solid foundation of Greek in your lexicon. Now, if you want to get that, more power to you, but that'll be an elective. Mr. Johnny B., shout out to you. Love the new direction. Yeah, I don't know where the direction is. The direction is how I feel the day I wake up. And probably somewhat dictated by my digestive tract. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out with us. And we have a super chat from Anarchy Tattoo Studios, our friend in the Bronx, NYC. Shout out to East Coast man. Good to see you back. Anarchy writes this. During the times of universal deceit, Telling the truth is a revolutionary act. That's a very good point you bring up. Forget Bitcoin. These conversations are real digital gold. Always listening while I'm working, but can't always comment. Yeah, and right there, man, there's danger in stereotyping. I struggle with this terribly. It is something that it's one of the worst character traits that I have. And not to make excuses, it's my own fault. None of us escape childhood unscathed. I don't care if your situation wasn't as bad as the poor neighbor that had to deal with daily beatings. It's not about that so much as that's your experience. Yeah, you didn't get daily beatings, but it doesn't mean that you didn't have a lot of trauma, and there's not a lot of things that you struggle with, and you're not the best you can be because of the burdens that your parents put upon you, right? The neglect. And those of us that are Gen X, we have that in spades. We have cornered the market on all of that. So if anyone has the right to be whinging and complaining, it is us. We were raised by the boomers. So have pity upon the Gen Xers that we were able to. And the fact that we're keeping this whole thing stuck together, well, just thank your Gen Xer the next time you see him. But raised in the environment that I was, it was hyper judgmental. It was a Christian cult, and it was us against the world. Us against the world. It was, we were not allowed to associate with anyone outside the church. We were not allowed to marry anyone outside the church or date or even have friendships. And even working or being friendly with coworkers was somewhat discouraged. And it was, they're the enemy, and we are the remnant. That's what it was. I didn't know any better. I heard that and was indoctrinated into that my entire life. And it wasn't until I became, an adult that I was able to separate reality from the environment that I was raised in. But I'm not going to be so foolish as to think that I escaped that without being beat up and come out of there with some wounds and scars, right? One of those, I believe, is being very judgmental about looking at something and then making a snap or a rash decision, good or bad, right or wrong, with everything, food, people, lots of different things. Less now, because an educated man realizes that that's a foolish way to look at things, because there are nuances, there are things you don't understand, and you can't judge a book by its cover. When I hear something insightful like, during the times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act, and forget Bitcoin, what I'm seeing here, I'm seeing a man that understands a thing about a thing. I see a man most likely that is learned, that reads. Any man that's quoting wise fathers from the past and reflecting upon that to help get clarity and direction in his present time, in the future, is a wise person. And how many times would you look at someone, now Anarchy is a tattoo artist, and NYC. And when you think of tattoo artists, you think of what? You kind of get a general picture. There's a stereotype. You start making opinions, And I would say the same time, the first time that Anarchy super chatted, I was thinking, oh, good, everyone's welcome, but I had in my mind an image. I had made a snap judgment just based on his vocation and the title, his avatar, and the title of what he's named his YouTube channel. But here, as he comes in, dropping insights, dropping interesting topics, discussions, this is a man of depth. This is an intelligent man. This is a man that has wisdom. So don't judge. Don't judge these people, and you never really know. You never really know. I think that the body of Christ is going to look very differently in the coming years than it has in the past. We're going to see dudes with sleeves. We're going to see dudes that ride motorcycles. We're going to see dudes that like guns. We're going to see ex-soldiers that have had a lot of life experience that are going to be some of the greatest warriors for Christ. Not the ones that we traditionally expect them to be. Church pew sitters, do-nothings, castrated, neutered men that claim to have the power of Christ but have no power at all. God is going to turn his back, in my opinion, on those people because they're ineffective. It's like the tree that doesn't bear fruit. What does the good book tell us? The vintner plants, or the orchardist plants a tree, or trees, one of them that doesn't produce fruit. Well, why does it not produce fruit? The other ones, all 9 are producing fruit. I planted 10, but 1 is not. Well, what do? Do we tear it out and plant another one? No, we'll give it another chance. We'll dig around it, we'll fertilize it, give it a little extra water, put some Miracle-Gro on there, really give it the TLC. See what happens next year. Next year, does it produce fruit? No. What does God tell us to do with it? Cut it out. Put the axe to the root. Cut it out and throw it in the fire. It's burnt for nothing. Why should it even encumbereth the ground? Why should you think about it one more second? You've done everything you can do, and it will not produce fruit, that it's useful to us. We will take that out, and we will put a tree in there that will produce fruit. And it seems to me that the modern day church has not been effective, that has lost its mandate, and COVID showed us all of that. Showed us all we needed to see. So, the church is not a building, it's not a steeple, the church is a body. And what is the body of Christ? Whenever 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am with you also. We're told right there. So at church, are we gathered here together? Is there 2 or 3 of us? Do we honor the gospel and honor the true faith in Jesus Christ here? Are we shying away from that? Are we discussing this? We are. Is this the body of Christ? Does this meet the criteria? It does to me. It does to me. So, expect to see powerful warriors for Christ that come from sects of portions of the community that you've not noticed in the past. That's all I'm saying. Let us not be dogmatic as we move into the future, and keep our eyes and our arms open for those that God sends into our lives, wherever they may come from. Shout out to the Anarchy Tattoo Studio, moving the Bronx, NYC, one step closer to West Coast status. Yeah, and you think one person doesn't matter? We saw different last week, didn't we, as Texas entered the fold. Mr. Overton says, there is also extreme utility in stereotyping. Yeah, of course there is. Yeah, that's a good point. Are you going to stereotype the young man that wants to come out and take your 16-year-old virgin daughter on her first date? Yeah, we're going to stereotype, aren't we? Are you going to stereotype a babysitter with your infant son? Yeah, we're going to stereotype. Are you going to stereotype the tenant that you're going to move into your rental? Yeah, of course. What I'm saying, I think everybody knows what I'm saying. What we're saying is that we need to be, as the good book tells us, harmless as doves, but wise as serpents. Let us not be fools, beloved. Let us be kind and trusting, but also let us be wise and don't cast our pearls before swine. And when we see something, when God gives us that wake-up call, when you get the heevies, when you get the bad feeling about something, that's God's Spirit to you speaking about something not being right. Dogs know it instinctively. Children know it instinctively, but we don't. We rationalize it away. The reason why when someone comes to the door that the dog and the child runs there, even though it's a stranger, and they know instinctively, is because it's that inner sense. God protects the weaker and the younger and the more naive. Those of us that have been older, we rationalize it away. Well, of course you can't. We see another guy shows up with a suit on. The child runs to the other end of the house or hides. The dog won't go near him. We drag the kid over there. No, come over here. Look, this is a upstanding neighbor. He's new here. He's got nice clothing on. He just rolled up in a good car. Obviously, he's a good person. Based off of what? Based off of appearances. The good book tells us God sees differently than you. God looks upon the heart. Man looks upon the outward appearance. The outward appearance is not reliable. The inward is where it's reliable. Kids and animals, Christians, people that are close to God instinctively know. They have that extra sense. That's all I'm saying. But Overton's right. Yeah, we can't be foolish. We have to stereotype. And stereotypes are true. That's why they exist. Female drivers. Need I say any more? We have a member message from Tedford Vaughn Patriot. Shout out to you, brother, who writes, good family and country, hoping that God smites the smites and that I'm going to try to read. Let's start over. Tedford writes this: God, family, and country, hoping that God smites the, you see, the punctuation and spelling is not helping the cause here whatsoever. Now, I'm not throwing stones. I live in a glass house here, but do put in an effort. Demonstrates that pollute the city and country of Denver that have turned this place into a cesspool. Yeah, well, you are living, if you're in Denver, you're living in the layer of demons. Go look at the new airport that was built outside of town. Go look into that a little bit. Go look at the murals. Go look at the horse art, whatever you want to call that. Go look at what was built underneath and why do they have so much more fuel and supplies than other international airports have. Denver is the fallback position for the globalist elites when they go underground. And there's you're going to feel, if you're spiritually connected, you're going to feel a darkness upon that city. Just like there's a darkness upon San Francisco. If you're really physically connected and plugged in spiritually, like really connected to what's going on, I'm not going to say that you can see what's going on behind the curtains with the spiritual world. Sometimes, if God wills it, you can. If he doesn't, you won't. But you can get the vibe. You can get the feel. You can feel a heaviness. You can feel an oppression. You know, a lot of you have experienced this before. Like going to San Francisco. San Francisco has that oppression about it. That there's just something gloomy about it. There's a darkness. There's an evil in that city, that it sits there and affects the people who live there, by and large. You know, why is sodomy and that lifestyle so prevalent in San Francisco? How did that start? Well, a lot of people say, some say that it goes back to the days of the gold rush, where you had a tremendous disparity between female and male, because you had men that were going there to make their fortune in the gold fields of California, the minor 49ers. Well, sodomy and that lifestyle, homosexuality, was prominent in those days, and still is today. That spirit, whatever that spirit is, has a headquarters there, seems to me. Thank you, Tedford. I appreciate that. I think I know what you were saying. Mr. Tyler Deerdorf, we have a super chat. Thank you, brother. No comment, just a super chat. And a new member, Kaladin Gaming. Welcome, Kaladin. Glad to have you here. Welcome to the family here. We have a super chat from our friend Mr. Overton, who writes, June used to be Men's Health Month, but the LG HD TV Plus community took over those headlines. See, you wanted to drag me into this conversation here. This is a minefield, Yeah, and a whole month for our global home, a whole month. Mother's Day one day, Father's Day one day, Veterans Day one day, but a whole month. Goodness, how about that? How about that? We have a super chat from Khaled Gaming. Khaled Gaming writes this. How's the smoke up there? Lots of smoke from the Canada fires up here last week. In Arkansas right now, heading to Oklahoma, then Illinois. I pray for you and yours every night. Thank you, Khaled. Thank you for the prayers. We don't have any smoke right now. I didn't look at the index this morning, but everything looks pretty clear. The mountain is clear. We've had a little bit of haze, but nothing to really speak of. But that can change really quickly depending on how the winds blow. Yeah, if you want to look and see some sinister nonsense going on, go on social media, TikTok specifically, and do a search of the, I believe, the Alberta fires. And you can watch from Doppler or some sort of weather satellite, you can watch and see the smoke signals of all these fires starting simultaneously over a very broad area. Not unlike what happened here in Oregon a few years ago up and down the I-5 corridor with all those fires that were started allegedly by natural causes. Yep. Energy weapons being used from wherever, for what reason? I don't know. At this point, I think that they're just mocking us. I think that they're just laughing at us, and just like a cat toys with a mouse, breaks its back, and then continues to torment it and play with it for hours. It's similar to that. I guess what it is, beloved, is that, you know, I think that this idea has kind of been, the thing with the Confederates of the adversary, the ones that are sitting in power, that are controlling men's lives like chess pieces. I think a person that you can get so wealthy, so powerful, so rich that there is no longer any joy of life when you can't buy a bigger boat, when you've been to space, when you have half a dozen homes all over the world, and you fly to the jet set to the best places and all the events, and you've had the most beautiful women and the best food that is available and the best of everything, that I can imagine that you start to look for more. You start to look for some excitement. And that can only turn to something like, you know, the Hunger Games, where you become so powerful now that your decisions are affecting men's lives for good or for bad, for life or for death. That there must be a great thrill in that power. And that seems to be what is the pastime of a lot of folks that have nothing better to do than to just play with the mouse, torment the mouse. We have a super chat from, thank you, Caledon. We have a super chat from Lemonade. Are you still grounding your bed? Does it work? I'm not. I spoke to this before. I only did it for one night, and it didn't work out for me very well because I move around, I roll around a lot in bed, and I put the tape across there, and before I knew it, in the middle of the night, I had the tape stuck all over to me, and the tape is metal, and it was poking and jabbing me, and I just, in frustration, I just tore it all out and threw it on the ground and put it away the next day. So I haven't done it. I would definitely do it. I have not actually put a lot of thought into this, but I haven't found a suitable alternative to the foil tape. I need something that would be conductive, that would also be comfortable to lay on. That's not going to be uncomfortable or you know what I'm saying, right? I don't know what that would be. Because Lord knows I like my comfort in bed. There's two things you don't want to mess with in this family: my sleep time and Mrs. W's dinners, her meals. Don't not feed her. We have a super chat from the Battle Chemist. Good to see you here, brother. Welcome back. Battle Chemist writes, missed my $10 super chat a while back. I'm sorry about that, brother. Shout out to you. Overton likely put it in Signal yesterday. Super chats, it's regarding how to apply paint to boiled linseed oil hickory. Okay, I'm going to go over there right now. You get this last one here. Cameron DeFore, welcome, our newest member. Good to see Cameron here. Overton says, so we mock back. Read my last S-key, South Carolina, more carefully. Ha. You know how it is, man. I'm up here trying to do the struggle stream, trying to be entertaining for the folks. I had a public education. I don't read so good. Definitely don't see so good. And here I am trying to decipher you guys' clever, witty rebuttals here, and I'm failing terribly, so I apologize for that. Usually the joke comes to me after the stream is over. All right, so I'm going to switch over here I'm going to attempt here. These type of things are difficult for an old boomer. You know, I move it around. Okay, here we go. I got him. Okay. Mr. Evan Dixon, I don't know if Evan's with us here. He wrote yesterday, a legendary duo. Well, I wouldn't say legendary, notorious. Notorious would be a better way to describe it, but thank you, Evan, if you're around there. Loving the radio, too. I cannot wait for you guys to be getting your 3 radio kits. You're gonna have the fizz all day. I still have the fizz every time I open it up. I know I like it because when the war band comes over and friends come over, it's one of the first things I share with them. Check this out, this is super cool. Everyone likes it and they want one. Everyone that I've shown that to has taken it upon themselves to either write down the name of the website or take a picture or a card or something, or like make sure that they had it because they wanted to go revisit it. Jamie, welcome Jamie. I hope Jamie's with us here. Jamie wrote yesterday, had to use warranty on a piece of gear the other day. A good reminder to choose companies who stand behind their product with no questions asked. Absolutely. You know, perfect example. So I had a big item purchase that was very disappointing to me last year. And I was surprised because it was from such a great company. When Jack and I raced the 24-hour endurance motorcycle race last year as a team, a duo, we had to run for 24 hours. So we needed really good lights that were appropriate for racing at night, or racing speeds. So I upgraded my light to a light made by Rigid. It was an expensive light, like $650, close to $700 when everything was said and done with taxes and shipping. So a $700 motorcycle light. You know, that's like 1/10 the cost of the whole bike right there, right? Or 1/8 or whatever. Math. I don't do math online. So I bought this thing, put it on. It was super awesome for the race. But what I found was every time I crash, and I crash often, and that could just mean dropping your bike or falling over, it breaks the light brackets. Well, no problem. I call Rigid. Hey, my light brackets broke. You know, I think that there's a problem with this design. The woman tells me, oh yeah, our engineers know that. We've had a lot of those come back. You know, saying things that she's not supposed to say, giving me some insight. So I make a mental note of that. She sends the brackets out, you know, it's a week, 10 days, you know, it's the sort of thing. It just keeps happening. I have to do it over and over again. It finally gets to the point where like, man, I've had the light over a year, or at a year, or at or near, and I'm gonna go back to the old one. The old one was on there from the factory. It was there for 7 years. It never once broke, never a problem, didn't think about it. Here, this thing's killing me. So I call the manufacturer. They're not helping. So then I call the retailer that I bought it from, which was Jeff Slavens down in Colorado, Slavens Racing. Shout out to Slavens Racing. I buy the lion's share of my moto stuff from them. I don't even check prices anymore because if Jeff has got it on his site, the price is fair, it's reasonable, it's not going to be inflated. The quality is going to be good because he doesn't sell any garbage. He doesn't sell, just because he can sell something, he doesn't sell it. He sells things that actually work. May not be your thing. You know, there's things like bling items, you know, if you want to put anodized or dress up your bike. I'm not just disparaging, whatever you want to do. It's off, no man can judge another man for doing what gives him the fizz. Is it just a general, that's just a cardinal pro-ho rule that we're going to go with here. So I called him. Spend some time, like, look, I got this light, it works fine, love the light, but the mounting brackets, I don't think they're designed properly. I know it's not your fault, but is there anything you can do? I can't do this. Either I'm just gonna take it off and sell it, whatever. Yeah, no problem. We haven't had, the guy's like, yeah, no problem, 100%. We haven't had a lot of experience with that. We haven't sold a ton of those, haven't seen any back. We'll take care of you. What would you like? I said, well, what I would like is I went to their site and I picked out another. I would like this ruby light, and that goes in the factory mount. It's gonna be tougher, you know, it's still super bright, still a race light, and price is a little bit less, but no problem. If we could just swap that, that'd be great. They're like, yep, 100%, no problem, let me get back to you. Immediately sends an email. It's got a label in it for return shipping. I don't have to fool with that, don't have to worry about that. I just put it in a box, Immediately get back a text the next morning. Hey, that light that you picked out is not going to work. I did some research on it. That won't work with a carbureted bike. That's only for fuel-injected bikes. However, he didn't give me a reason why he couldn't do something. He started off with a reason why he couldn't do something, but he immediately followed up with a solution that was even better than I could have expected. So The one you wanted is not going to work. I've done the research for you. I didn't just ship it out. Now you have to deal with returning another light because I didn't know my product. But I went to 2 different manufacturers because what you want doesn't exist, but I just made it happen for you. So because we're a retailer and we have a good reputation with our suppliers, I contacted brand A that had what I thought you needed, but didn't have a portion of it. And then I contacted brand B, and I've put these 2 together, and they are going to build you the light that you want. We'll have it out to you, no charge. Not only that, but the fact that this light was a little bit less, like $60 less than the one that I originally purchased, we're going to give you a credit to buy something else at our place that you might use in the future. That's Jeff Slavin's customer support right there. Do you think, after that experience, do you think that I'm going to buy from anyone else? Never. Do you think I'm going to share this story with everyone that I know in the motorcycle community? Where should I buy something? You're going to buy it from Jeff Slavin's. Where should I buy this? You're going to buy it from Jeff Slavin's because I've been buying from him and he took care of me and this is the reason why. You know, and that's exactly what the comment was about here. What Jamie is saying here. He had to warranty a piece of gear the other day, and that is when your chickens come home to roost. If you're constantly finding the lowest price and going with no-name companies or companies that don't care or they're just about price, you know, there's more to it than that. That's all I'm saying. So high-ticket items, like I'm talking about, motorcycle equipment like that where you're run the chance of breaking something, high-ticket items like maybe camera equipment, buy from a company that will stand behind their products and has a face there. I think that's very good advice. Thank you, Jamie. And Chuck Peoples Homestead, medical. Shout out to you, brother. Hope you're still here. Says, I have a small IFAK attached to your chaps or a saw itself. Always have a medical kit on your body. Yeah. That's something that I added a few years ago to the faller's belt. Now, faller's belt is what a man wears when you're out doing tree work, cutting firewood, felling. You have a faller's belt. On that faller's belt, you're going to have a couple key items. You're going to have a wedge pack. You're going to have your wedges. You're going to have your scrunch tool for tightening or adjusting or changing your chain. You're going to have an axe and a suitable scabbard that you can use for pounding wedges, a million different things that you need. You should always have an axe when you're working with chainsaws. And what I've recently added, in addition to a Spencer logging tape, if you're going to be doing interpret salvage work where things that you're cutting might be going to market or going to the sawmill, then you want to cut the proper length. So you have usually a faller's tape on you, a Spencer tape. You're not going to have that on a fire. Some guys do. Now, I've seen some guys, some really good sawyers that came out of the logging industry and weren't trained by the Forest Service. Forest Service cutters, they don't give a hoot about that. They work for the government. They don't know what saving money means. They're even discouraged from doing it. Whereas people that come out of the private industry, they realize that by cutting a log wrong can make a big difference as to its value and how it's scaled. So these guys, I have seen them on fires when they were going through and felling, salvage felling and different things like that, that they were putting tapes on there because they knew that whoever ultimately ended up selling these trees and taking to market would greatly appreciate them being cut to proper lengths at the sawmill, to maximize their yield. That's the difference right there between the private sector and a government employee. Government employee doesn't care about saving money. We had a super chat from Overton yesterday as well. Sorry to miss those, brother. I really do. He said, so true about internet friends. I'm actually a dude disguised as a dude playing another dude. Yeah, well, that's what we all do here. You guys have always been watching green screen. There's been a few people that have been really savvy and picked up the fact that how regularly I use a green screen, and also figured out that I wear a hairpiece. Not very many, but there were a few. I don't know if they're pixel peepers or how it was they figured that out, because I am very, very careful. As I've told you guys so many times, before I was a little bit ashamed to tell people that I was balding and that I wear a hairpiece. So I wasn't going to go like buy something on Amazon. Like I did my research and I found out what is the most realistic, what looks like the most like human hair, so that, you know, to preserve my vanity. I found that the perfect hairpiece can only be found in the South Pacific. And my hair pieces are specifically made. These are custom made. These are not off the rack. These are not off the rack. Custom made from Polynesian virgins that are fed a strict diet of coconut oil. So, but even with that, even to go to those lengths, there were still a few people that figured that out. I'll never know how. I'll never know how. Thank you, brother. Northstar 09 wrote, as yellow FSS bag backpack sprayers are. So what he's talking about is a backpack sprayer. And I've used them a lot. They're a loathsome, hateful thing to have to be saddled with, but they are very handy. He says, are yellow FSS backpack sprayers worth buying to keep around the homestead, or are they trouble if they've been in service for several years? No, they're not necessarily trouble. I mean, you can inspect them and see what you need to see. There's a couple things with those things. Shall I grab one? Do we like visual aids? I know I do. Let me grab one and we'll all be on the same page. Now, this is not the same as the FSS, but the Forest Service has used these for years, and they're all exactly the same thing. I don't know if you can swap parts, but it wouldn't surprise me. Okay, so one thing that is in short supply, wildland firefighting, is water. The opportunist is coming. You can tell it's hot when she spreads out on the metal bench top. Let's get everyone on the same page. So this is a 5-gallon water bladder backpack. Notice the skinny straps and the lack of waist belt. It's got this is the original one. It's got the fill here on the top. You fill that with water, and then it has a quick attach on the bottom, which will receive this guy right here, which is the hose. Now the pump, so this is worn on the back by some unlucky firefighter. It's 7 pounds a gallon. Someone can do the math. It's quite a bit of weight. This is the pump. So you would have this in your hand, and there are actually the Forest Service stuff. So cool. This is old school stuff. You have a big orifice there, and then the small one, the double small one. That's even for more economizing with water, or just a greater spread. You know, of course, this one's broken here. I just didn't even notice that till now. But everything in the fire service is tethered, of course, because everybody loses their things. But what this does, the solid brass pump, just is a trombone style pump. What they call it, trombone style. And these are all fully rebuildable. These are the best quality. So there are, even in a pinch, you can replace the rubber washers with leather. Leather makes a good good washer. Next best thing to rubber. A lot of the old wells, like I've even restored an old ram pump that I had to have a check valve in that opened and closed, and I used leather. Originally, that's what they would have used. When I was rebuilding it, the leather had dried and cracked, and I just took a new piece from some scraps that I had and put it in there, and everything worked just fine. So you can, all the early chain pumps and different things on ships, bilge pumps and such, had leather washers in there to create the seal. So if you buy an old one, pull the bladder. If it's the Forest Service type, you're going to have a bladder inside of the yellow bag. Pull that out, check and see that it's not cracked or it holds water, it's not damaged. And then if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, you can get a rebuild kit for the head. Now, that seems foolish. You think, well, what good is, you're talking about dragging a 5-gallon water backpack into a forest fire? What in the world is that going to do? Well, where it really comes into is when you're doing mop-up and clearing out hot spots. You don't have water. You can be up on the side of a mountain. You could be miles from the closest water, and it's very expensive to get it up there to you. The only option is to throw in a Mark Series pump and pump it up, with miles of hose, and that can all be done, but it takes tremendous effort and labor and expense and equipment and a lot of guys to make that happen. Or you've got aircraft, which can drop it. But I was told by a division supervisor one time, he was kind of getting after some guys for wasting water in that environment. You kind of have to act like you're in Dune, when you're up there. It's so precious, the water, that he said the cost for the Forest Service to get water up to this fire is equivalent to that of milk. So look at it that way. It's expensive, $3, $4 a gallon. It's probably quite a bit more now. So having a backpack sprayer when you're dry mopping, meaning you've gone through an area, the fire's already burnt, but you want to send a crew in there and you're doing something called cold trailing. Now, you can have the unenviable position, and I have a lot, of getting attached to mop-up. So let's say the fire has been through, it's just smoking, it's 80% contained, but that doesn't mean that the work is done. Firefighters literally have to go through and walk shoulder to shoulder, sometimes crawling, and put your hand in everything that's smoking. They call it cold trailing. You use the back of your hand, you're basically running it through all the ash, looking for heat. It's a primitive, barbaric way to do it. It takes forever. The technology is so available now. I mean, if they could have just give us an IR or heat sensor, a thermal sensor, a device that we could just scan a field, that one person could stand up there and scan and point and send firefighters. There's a hot spot there. There's a hot spot over there by that stump, rather than just going shoulder to shoulder and doing a grid search and literally running your hands. You use the back of your hand, not the front, when you're cold trailing, running the back of your hand through all of this ash in the hopes of finding a hot spot. That's the way it's done. And the reason why you use the back of your hand, because you often burn your hand, and you don't want to burn the front of your hand. If you burn the back of your hand, it hurts and stings, but you're not using the back of your hand to do work. You're using the fronts of your hands. So if you burn the front of your hand, you can no longer do any work. You can't hold a tool. You can't drag a hose. You can't do anything. You're disabled. So that's why you use the back of your hand. When you're doing that cold trailing and you're trying to get the heat out of it, the only way you have of doing it without water is mixing it. And you're mixing hard dirt and sand and gravel and sticks and roots. I mean, it's a very difficult job. And you can't leave it. You can't leave it hot. If you leave it hot and you get a rekindle from your area, and everyone knows your area, that's a real bad thing. That would follow you. That would hurt your reputation. That's something that you would not want to happen. Just like you wouldn't want to kill someone on duty if you were a cop, right? Does it happen? Yes, but you don't want it to happen. You try to avoid it. Having a small amount of water in a situation like that is tremendous. You can have someone there that's squirting some cool water while you're mixing dirt and you're cold trailing and putting out hot spots. It makes your job a lot easier. So that's why. Yeah, and it's a good thing. If you don't have, you should, beloved, if you have any risk at all of a wildland fire in your area, or it could start on your land or on your neighbor's land, you are derelict if you haven't taken precautions to have a basic toolkit set up, meaning the personal protective equipment. You don't have to have greens and yellows, Nomex, and a high-speed fire pack. Have your work boots, leather boots, non-synthetic wool gloves, nothing that's going to melt to you. Have some pants that are of a non-flammable material, wool or cotton, heavy cotton. Carhartts will work. Have a long sleeve shirt that's collared, something you can fold the collar up, protect the back of your neck, the front of your neck from excessive heat, that will protect your arms from heat. Heavy leather gloves where you could grab on something, it's not going to burn your hand. Some goggles, clear, to protect, an N95 mask and a hard hat from falling debris. That's the minimum that what you should have. And if you're in that environment with boots and wool gloves on, wool socks on and gloves and all buttoned up and a big pack, you think you might get thirsty, think you might get hungry, you might get fatigued in that environment. What happens if it's 102 out and you're out there fighting fire? You're going to need some electrolytes. You're going to need some water. You're going to need a few things. What are you going to need? Think about it. You need to have that as a grab-and-go ready kit, just for your personal items. And then, if you don't have a tool, then what good are you? You're going to show up there and you're going to stomp it out. You're going to run out there in the middle of the fire with 2 and 3 foot flames, and you're going to stomp around. You're going to stomp it out and catch yourself on fire. You got to have a tool, beloved. You have to have a tool, something with some reach. A rake, fire shovel, depending on what your fuel load. Are you in heavy timber? What's your fuel? Are you in flashy fuels like grass or desert scrub, where it goes rapidly? You know, you fight these things differently, very differently, and you equip yourself very differently according to the environment. We had to have, you know, just like a pararescue guy or a special forces guy has a different loadout for different missions. Fire service is the same, very much so that way. If you're going to be doing stuff in a cold environment, you're going to have winter gear. Maybe you have white camouflage even. If you're going to be operating in Sudan, where it's 120, it's going to be very different, right? Same mission, but very different gear. Fire's the same way. If I'm going, when I was responding, whether it be the Forest Service or the local district, if I'm going west, I can expect heavy timber. No flashy fuels, slow fire growth, higher humidities, a very predictable fire weather, nothing erratic. But you let me go another 20 minutes to the east, now I'm in rolling hills, fine flashy fuels, high winds, a lot of southern face, southern exposure, extreme fire weather, extreme fire growth, flame length capabilities of 200 feet. You know, very different environment. Am I going to act differently? Yeah, I'm going to have different gear, different equipment for that environment. So the same thing goes. At minimum, if you're living in the urban interface, meaning if you're close to an area where fire could be a reality, wildland fire in your area, the personal protective equipment needs to be established now and put in a gear bag, a ready-go bag that's by the door ready to go with your fire tool. Shovel, rake, whatever, just something that's reliable, sturdy, and good. It's not going to break on you and fail. It's a life safety thing. Backpack with some snacks and some water and, you know, those type of provisions. You know, have those things set up so that you can be effective if you need to go. Because here's the deal, is that when you see smoke and you see flames, all of these fires, whether it be lightning strike or it started from a train or it started from a guy dragging a safety chain with his trailer and lighting grass on fire on the side of the road, they start small. And that every one of these could be easily stomped out with a boot or a shovel or just a basic set of tools. But that window you have to make that happen is very, very small, and you need to jump on it immediately. Just like first aid, you know, the golden minute, the golden hour, that sort of thing. What you do and how quickly you can get to a patient determines whether their chances of life or death, by and large. And whether you're able to control the fire and get an anchor point and flank around it and get it handled is going to depend on your ability to respond to that and how quickly. Spartan 219. Man, it's good to see you back, brother. What's my thought on Freemasonry? Any secret society, you know, the difference between Freemasonry and the gospel, and they'll try to couch it as some sort of a Christian organization, but it is not. It's heresy. It's secret organizations. It's old world demonic stuff. There's a lot of dudes in Masonry that are good dudes. I think the lion's share, the majority of them, have no idea what's going on in the upper echelons. It's a men's group. They even do charity work, whatever. You know, we all get it. That they may even spend their entire lifetime not understanding really what's behind it and how sinister it is. But you get up into 33-degree masonry and that sort of thing, and the blood oaths that need to be taken, you know, it's contrary to the scriptures. And the fact that it's secret and not all-inclusive tells you it's not from God. You know, what did Christ tell us? Who can come to me? Who can come to the gospel? What does he say? Whosoever will. Whosoever will may come. So whenever you see inner rings, secret societies, that sort of thing, nebulous, be suspect of it, beloved. I do not think it's something, in my opinion, that a man of the way should be involved with. It's my opinion. Mr. Tyler Hall, we had a super chat yesterday. Thank you, Tyler. And Max Robert, Max has been a member for 4 years as well. From a Proho, Honda EU 2000i or EB 5000, first generator, but wanted by quality. Live in an area with frequent outages, needed to keep the freezer cold. No question, the 2000. I have essentially both. I have a 2000 and a 6500. I've got the big Honda, big brother of the 5000. How many times have I used the 5000 or the 6500, whatever it is? Maybe it's the 6000. How many times have I used that versus the 2000? I've never used the big one, but I use the 2000 all the time. I would definitely start with the 2000. The 2000 is man portable, meaning that you can pick it up by yourself. You can put it in your quad, you can put it in your truck, you can take it over to your neighbor's garage. The 5000, the 6000, those require special equipment. I wouldn't even be comfortable with 2 guys unloading that off of a tailgate. It's so big and heavy. You have to have a forklift to move that thing if you're going to put it up in a vehicle, or a lift or a hoist or something, which really changes the way. It's like having an excavator or a tractor with metal tracks versus rubber. Yeah, the metal is more stable and better and stronger, and you can dig better and load over the side and all that. But the rubber, this is the utility of it, the fact that you can take it anywhere and you can run it across your driveway, that makes a big difference. So start with the 2000. The 2000, especially the eyes, I would buy one with make sure it has the 30 amp circuit. The one that I have only has a 20 amp circuit. The 30 amp, and it will not run high draw items like skill saws, worm drive saws. Is that important as it used to be with the tools that we have today being mostly cordless? No, not really. What you're really concerned about is when the power goes out, you want to be able to start that thing, set it outside your garage, not in your garage, beloved. Your garage, many small houses, the intake of the furnace is in the garage. And a lot of people die every year by putting their generator, they open the garage door, they put the generator out front, thinking that, it's safe, it's outside. But if the wind is blowing back towards the garage, now you're filling the garage full of carbon monoxide that is being drawn in through the cold air intake into your furnace system and distributed into your bedrooms. And people don't wake up. Entire families have died from that. So very, very dangerous. So beware of that. But the 2000, man portable, fuel efficient, quiet, affordable, and it has enough power to run what you need to run, which is what? You need to keep your freezer and your refrigerators running. You need to protect your food. That's really, really the thing. So with the 2000, we ran ours many, many times at our last place with when the power went out. I did not have a big backup generator, or I had a bigger one, but I never needed to use it. We would have a splitter and 4 or 5 extension cords running into the house, running all sorts of things. A plug for the kitchen, so you could plug in appliances. You've got your, what else do you have hooked up there? Your refrigerators, yeah. The 2000 for sure. You should have both eventually. That should be the goal. If you're going to buy the 5000, you might as well buy the 6000, the 6500, because you're still going to need a forklift for both of them. The only one that I could say that I would buy that is really big, maybe first, would be the 3000. The 3000 is nice because it has electric start, but it's a whole lot bigger, twice the size at least over the 2000. And it's going to take 2 people to load it and unload it. Cameron DeFore, and new member, he wrote, I'm looking to move out of my childhood home. What state or area would you recommend I am? I recommend I am a mechanic by trade. The West is wonderful, but the West is expensive. So if you're trying to get ahead and you want to build and establish a life and not be in debt and pay these exorbitant prices with the job that you're choosing, which is getting into the trades, I'm not disparaging anyone. I grew up in the trades, but the trades don't pay a lot. I mean, you're not going to get rich in the trades. Could you be comfortable? Yeah, I think if you go in and you are a journeyman, with a specialty, I think that that's going to be beyond a living wage in the future. It's going to be, you're going to be doing quite well. They're going to be well into six figures. Maybe even, wouldn't say in the next decade, it wouldn't surprise me if journeyman electricians in the right position will pull down $750,000 annual. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But that's not going to be the $750,000 that you think it is, that it used to be. That's going to be the $750,000 or the $250,000 to $250,000 is basically now what $100,000 used to be. Maybe $500,000 is, maybe $1 million. Yeah, it's more like what a million is, if you're a boomer, is what what $100,000 used to be. $100,000 isn't so much anymore. So I would discourage moving out west unless you want to be in the middle of nowhere. The West is big, states are big, there's a lot of inexpensive rural land, but you have to live in a rural community where there may not be what you want. And there may not be jobs, and the wages are not going to be there. So it's a hard thing. If you want the high wages, you have to move in the city, but then the cost of living is high. If you want to live in the country, it's cheaper, but the wages are lower as well. Choose the environment that you like. Remember that life is more than work. What is it you like to do? That's what I would ask myself. Do you like fishing? Then move to a place that has great fishing. Do you like moto and dirt bike? Then move to a place where you can ride from your home. So understand that, you do the things you do so that you can do the things you want to do. Don't build your entire life around your job and work. Yes, you have to do these things, but build your life around what you're going to do when you're not doing that. We had a super chat from this is the one we missed from our friend the Battle Chemist. He wrote, I've been treating my new hickory handles with BLO and want to paint the handles for identification. Do I need to wipe off the solvent for paint to stick prior to the application? I've done it both ways, and I have not found the paint, even using cheap spray paint, I have not found it to be undurable. It seems to work fine. Now, I would not coat it with boiled linseed oil and have it dripping and then mask it off and then start painting. That's obviously not going to work. Give it some time. Let it sit for a couple weeks and dry out a little bit. Get the stuff that's on the surface off of there. And what I did with mine is it was well coated with boiled linseed oil, many years. Just take some isopropyl alcohol on a shop towel and wipe off the area that you want to identify your tool. It's a good idea to identify your tools. You should have your own custom kind of signature on how you paint your tools. My granddad always painted the tips of his tools red. I paint the tips of my tools black. He did that when I asked him because in hunting camps where there were a lot of men, like we grew up in hunting camps where big families would go, he was always people grabbing his things, and he took care of his tools and bought quality tools. And if you buy a Grand Forest Brooks axe that you have invested in and taken care of, and it's your baby, how would you feel if some Philistine from the hunting camp comes over and grabs it and starts chopping on some old piece of pine, overstriking and chewing up the handle and putting nicks in it and throwing it in the dirt and miss-swinging and getting the blade that you've agonized over in the rocks? I mean, you can see why you wouldn't want that, right? Well, Granddad was the same way. So he painted his handles red where you could immediately identify what your tool was. So if he were to see someone using his tool or what have you, or even if it just fell down, it was leaned against a tree and it fell down, it could easily get lost because it looks like the forest. Well, now it's got a bright red handle on it. So that was why he did it. It's done also, I've seen it done many times with hotshot crews and different hand crews, even engine crews that were particularly fastidious about their tools and maintenance, and they wanted their tools. And so they would put all manner of different, like multi-colorful stripes and different things, just like you would see fighter pilots that would paint the nose of their plane, that sort of thing, different colors and patterns to immediately identify when someone had taken or borrowed their tool. So rub it with isopropyl alcohol, let it dry. The reason why you use isopropyl alcohol is it does not leave any residual. So if you ever want to clean anything, it needs to be super clean. Lenses, you're going to put a decal or a sticker on something, clean it with 90% or 90% or better isopropyl alcohol. It will degrease everything nicely, and then it will evaporate immediately and leave no residual that would prevent your adhesion or your sticker from sticking or from your lens from being clean. Yeah, you'll be fine with that. Mr. Tyler Hall, shout out to you. Tyler writes, any advice on a career change? Currently unhappy working for the federal government as a cop. I don't doubt that. 25 years old, and I wake up not wanting to go to work anymore. Yeah, you wake up not wanting to go to work anymore because you have to work around those people, and you are not one of those people. So shout out to you for waking up and realizing that. I'm going to go out here on a venture. I'm going to go out and guess, being someone that has worked in the presence of cops as a firefighter, I don't like them. I don't like the people the type of people it attracts. Now, not all. As I've said many times, I've had great experiences with my local sheriff's department. I know some of the guys. They don't bother people. I don't see them on the side of the road writing tickets. I don't see them as extracting or being parasites upon the community. I see them being part of the community. And the difference between not all sheriffs, I've heard horror stories from a lot of sheriffs and watched videos of terrible ones. But it's different with the sheriffs somewhat in that the sheriff is elected. He's elected by the people, he's not appointed. So if he abuses the people, abuses his power, he will pay for that at the ballot box. And also, usually he has a tighter reign over his deputies. And it just seems that the type of guys that get into the sheriff, they live in the community, they're just better dudes. They're just better dudes. You get your state cops, you get your hateful federal cops, you get your, the city cops, the worst. Power tripping, horrible people, horrible. Never trust a cop. Never trust a cop. Don't talk to them. Don't have them over your house. If you see them, I authorize you, in my weaker moments, to flip them the bird. Let them know how much the people despise what they do and what they stand for and their cowardice during COVID. Yeah, the reason why you want to leave is because you're in the presence and you've seen what they are. Mr. Jeremy Judge, shout out to you. Jeremy writes, searched for a year and a half, finally picked up a 1993 Toyota 22RE 4x4, one of the greatest trucks of all time. Great condition, 300 miles on a full engine rebuild for $9K. I'd paid $9K for that. A 93, yep, with the 22RE. That is the ultimate prepper vehicle. It really is. I would take that over a manual Cummins, just because the Dodge chassis. I made a comment the other day. Someone was talking about the Irish, and there's an old saying that says, the Irish are known for being drunks. But they've also been known for being savage fighters, savage soldiers. Absolutely. I mean, next to the English, among some of the best fighting men, most courageous in the world. Crazy. The old saying goes that the only thing that has prevented the Irish from taking over the world is alcohol, right? Which is always kind of funny. And the point that I was making is that, yes, that Cummins engine is the best there is for a light truck. But the only thing preventing the Cummins from truly being the greatest, the king of all light trucks, is that it's saddled with the alcohol, which is the Mopar chassis. You see the parallel there? Eric from Kansas City, he wrote, first, greatly appreciate your approach. Second, recommend buy once, cry once for all around. Yeah. Well, it's always the goal. If you have the means, you're better off. If you're getting into something you're going to like, buy the best you can afford if it's life saving, especially if it's something it's a tool that you use regularly, a toy that you play with regularly, a bed you sleep in, the shoes you wear. Buy once, cry once is always the better choice. You'll not buy it twice or three times. You'll have a better experience using it, safer, better, funner, nicer, more enjoyable. Now, basing that, this is going off the premise that price equates to quality. That's not always the case. But for tools and such, Proho knows what we're talking about here. Mr. Shane wrote yesterday, first, enjoyed last night's post. Q at your home, you have water, power, and a generator. Any interest in PV? Sorry if I missed that. I'm getting a 4K unit, batteries back, good payback, not grid reliant, Proho essential. It's talking about should a man have solar panels? I think so. I don't have a full-on mega array. I have, in that situation, I have taken steps to provide power for me and mine a different source, a different way, that would not be something that I would be able to get away with and do in the current environment. But in a situation where there is no power and everything is coming off the rails, oversight and regulation and those sort of things are no longer a concern. It's a different world that we live in. So I have access to a better resource than power, especially sitting up here at the 45th parallel, which is not ideal for solar. But with that being said, I'm not going to neglect it. So what I've done is I put up, I've got two 400-watt panels on an array that tie in to just basically tie into my simple pump that I have a splitter off of. So if and when I need to do that, I've got lithium battery backup generators, that sort of thing, that I can charge with that. I've got probably two big portable arrays that I can deploy, which are a combination of about 1,000 watts altogether if I hooked them all together. So I have the ability to kind of cabbage several things together to take advantage of that, and that would be charging phones, radios, lights, batteries, solar generators that could convert and charge bigger thing, that sort of thing. It would probably always be, so I have enough to do that. I have enough. My main goal with that is I wanted an off-grid water supply. So my main goal for solar, for me here, was to let the sun run, to be able to run a pump that would pump water, enough water that I could irrigate with and supply the needs for my family. So to answer your question, yes, solar is important. Do you need a big array, a grid array, that sort of thing? I don't know, maybe. Depends on what you have. If that's your sole source, then the answer would be yes. But at minimum, I would have a couple portable panels, something fold out, like the 4-panel. I've done some videos on the 4-panel EcoFlow. There's 4 100-watt panels that fold into an accordion type of thing that you can lay on the ground. You see these are pretty ubiquitous in the RV world. You'll go to an RV park, you'll see dudes that have those propped up, sat outside, charging batteries. At minimum, I would have one of those, regardless of where you're at. And we have a comment yesterday from Micah Hegland, who writes, doing work at the gun range, always enjoy the videos, keep it up. Well, thank you, brother. I'm sorry to miss your super chat yesterday. And finally, Mr. Peter D. Peter D writes, sir, if there is one most important prepping item that is needed for the coming struggle, what would that be in your opinion? Community. Community would be the number one thing, more important than anything. I would take trusting my wits and my ability to figure out solutions to problems, pulling multiple resources together with community, and having someone that was watching my back when I had to sleep, that I would over any high-speed gear. But, okay, let's paint a scenario. Let's say I've got $1,000. Things have went sideways or about to go sideways. I got caught on the back foot a little bit, don't have a lot of resources. I live in the city. I don't have a country property, and yet I do not want to be caught in that environment. I want some options. But I've only got $1,000. Where would I start? I'm going to presume, I don't have a lot to work with here. I'm going to presume you're going to already have something, and that's going to be a capable vehicle. Professional homeowner is going to have a vehicle that's capable for his environment, whatever that may be. Now, it's a sliding scale. What's needed in the mountains, snow, ice, doing retrievals and stuff is going to be different than a dude that may be somewhere else that doesn't have those major swings in weather or winter, right? So a suitable vehicle for your environment. What does that mean? One that can carry you and yours and the things that you're going to need if you need to get out and get away. So what capabilities do you need? Probably 4-wheel drive. I think that's going to be something that would be needed in most vehicles, because we have to assume that the major arteries are going to be either one, blocked. You understand, beloved, that interstates are intentional choke points, right? They're habit trails. They've been designed this way by the adversary, or the adversary has moved men to do it a particular way, so that once you're funneled onto these things, if you look at them, you'll see there's no way for you to get off. If you try to cross the not all, but this is the ultimate goal, and this is what they're moving to. If you try to cross the medium in one of these, and get out and do a U-turn, you're going to be faced with either Jersey barriers, K-rails, or you're going to have the wire fence. You're not going to drive through that wire fence, I assure you. It's reinforced wire rope, and it's super, super strong. It's strong enough to stop a truck, from this crashing into it. You're not getting across that. So perhaps it would be a good idea to have something in your vehicle or your emergency kit like this. Tell me what Proho could not get into with this, or could not cut, right? Are you going to cut wire cable with this? You're going to cut a gate lock. You're going to be able to get into any door, right? Proho can make it happen with one of these. And if you want to take that a step further, get yourself a Stihl or Husky hot saw. And then the world is your oyster, including every ATM in the world. So those are choke points. So once they funnel you onto those things, then checkpoints will be set up on the off ramps, and then you will be processed, and you essentially, unless you're on foot, all of your gear, truck equipment, all of that stuff, you're going to be at the mercy of whoever is hurting you for whatever purpose, right into the camps. So you want to avoid those sort of things. So what vehicle are you going to need to take the back roads, to take the road less traveled in your environment? Make that decision. So I'm going to assume that we're starting with that. Beyond that, I need to remove myself. I'm bugging out. I'm assuming you're bugging out. It's not safe. You're in Los Angeles. You're in Las Vegas. You're in Baltimore. You need shelter, food, and water. So you're looking at basically camping. What I've been telling you, beloved, where you need to start, where the entry level for all of this is, if you don't have a ton of resources and don't have a ton of money, but you're waking up to the fact that you want options, then the best solution that I can figure out for you guys is the whole overland movement. The overland movement is taking off with people that have already wrestled with this question, and this is a solution that they've come up with. It gives them the ability to not completely throw money away on things that are just going to be stored, i.e. Berkey water filters, a year of supply of food, all this extra stuff that we gather. It is, yes, you're taking resources away from the family to invest in this, but you're also having something that you can enjoy. You're putting it into a vehicle you already own that you can take out, and you can take your kids' family, or take your kids backpacking, fishing. You can enjoy all of that and also get experience with it. Understand the systems, understand what you're lacking, and within a year or so of building an overland piece of equipment, and that can all be done on a Toyota truck, a Toyota chassis. My sister and her first husband went to Africa, this was years ago, bought a Toyota Hilux that had a real safari type of camper conversion on it, and were 18 months and drove the entire length from north to south of Africa in that vehicle. Wore out a set of tires and a set of shocks in the trip. So 60,000 miles, I think 50,000 miles, something like that they put on there. And the two of them lived for a year and a half in this Toyota Hilux with a small, smart, well-designed camper conversion. So, and this was in Africa. So and my sister's high maintenance. You think I'm high maintenance. You don't know. You don't know. So if my sister can live in a Hilux in Africa, a Western white woman, for 18 months, do you think that you might be able to live out of your overlander for whatever time it takes? So overlanding is where it's at, beloved. Start with that capable vehicle. You can even do it on the sly. No one's even going to know. It's common to buy a Land Cruiser, 4Runner, Tacoma, and then get into that movement. That's where I would put my money. Start with a place to stay. So you're going to have a flip-out tent, You're gonna get into water storage. You know, I can't go into all the details. Again, I'm not your Google. It's out there. I'm the idea person. I'm just to point you in the right direction. You can go to the source and find it. Thank you, Micah. Oh, okay, I'm going to jump back. We got through everything yesterday. Boy, I'm going to have to come up with a better way for our dual streams. That's unacceptable. Not taking the super chats. It's just deplorable. Okay, what are we doing here? It's hard being a boomer in this time. Okay, here we go. I pick up a couple. Looks like I probably missed more super chats. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I apologize for that. We have a member message, our last member message here, and then we'll shut it down. To Tyler, Overton could put us in touch if you wish. I was a cop for 5 years and left to be a pilot. Worth all the effort. Thank you, Cody, for all you do. Yeah. Yeah, speaking of the young man, 25, was a cop that wanted to get out of that. I want to preface this, man. I go hard on the cops because I think the cops are the big problem right now. Cops are the enforcement arm of the elites and anyone that opposes our view, anyone that opposes us, our feminist neighbor, especially if they're a woman, all they've got to do is call the blue pill simps, and they will come with guns and drag you out of your car or home and throw you in a cage. And if you're a man, there's a good chance that you'll be killed in the process. It's not out of the conversation whatsoever. Avoid police contact at all costs. Whenever you put yourself in contact with these guys, no good is going to come out of it. Absolutely no good. Nothing good is going to come out of it from you. Don't even talk to them. Keep your mouth shut. I don't care if you're guilty. You sit there like a mute, like a bump on a log. You don't say ish. Nothing. Nothing. There's some good dudes in there. There's a lot of good dudes in the police department that are trying to make a difference, but the whole organization is rotten to the core, and it needs to be disbanded, and we need something different. I have no faith in it whatsoever. It's a lost cause. A lot of guys getting into it, they feel the call. They have the sheepdog mentality. I get it, brother. I get it. I was born with it. Most of you that are here were born with it. Something that draws you to either military, EMS, or the fire service, law enforcement, whatever. Overlanding, it's a desire to be a sheepdog, to look out for your country and your family and your fellow friends and your brothers in arms. You know, it's just some people have it, some people don't have it. We have it. So we're drawn to it. It's very disillusioning when you go into something like that, idealistic, for the right reason, willing to sacrifice, willing to take a bad job, a difficult job for less money, to do something that you think is worth doing, to make a difference in life, only to show up there and to be met with the reprobates and the scumbags and the lowlifes that are in these positions. It's very disconcerting. And the problem is that you may go into that at 25, idealistic, but the more you hang around this filth and these individuals, the more you will be contaminated by them and the more you'll become like that. Pretty soon you'll find yourself lying on police reports. Pretty soon you'll be finding that you're watching someone abuse citizens, and rather in the past where you would have rushed to their defense, now that you're piling on, you're dogpiling, you're cop piling, or you're lying to cover another officer who did something shady and is trying to protect his career. You cross that blue line, and then you become unredeemable, and you become them. You become contaminated by them. And then you get the mentality that it's us against them, and you no longer see people as people, but as enemies, as someone it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. There are very few men that can get into it and come out unscathed. Most of them are corrupted by the evilness in it. It's hateful. Shun them. Don't have them. Revile cops and explain to them why you will not be inviting them to your home, why they're not welcome at your events, why you're not going to be friends with them. Explain that to them. Let them become pariahs among society so that no one is willing to do that despicable job. We have a super chat from Kyle B. Shout out to you, Kyle. Kyle writes, I pulled the trigger on the 2.5 ton, 2.5 ton Army truck last week. It has the Habitat box on it already. Now I need to convert it for a living. I live on an Army base. You should see the looks I get. Yeah, I have a good friend of mine did that a couple years ago. And they overlanded, pulled up, they sold their home, overlanded for a couple years all over the country, built his own off of a big 2.5 ton military truck, and they got it done. Yeah. Yeah, good for you. It's a very capable truck. A lot of people doing that. Hateful things to drive, but once you get there, they're pretty nice. And finally, Micah Hegland, he tells us that he likes turtles. Who doesn't like turtles? My sister had a turtle. My sister was always an animal person. She had a small turtle that she got growing up. She was probably 10 or 12 or so. It was about so big. And we realized that the turtle had to live outside. So what we did is we ended up, this is so barbaric when I think about it now. Because I didn't realize then that, a turtle doesn't live inside of its shell. Some people think that there's like a small turtle animal that lives inside of its shell, that it can leave the shell whenever it wants. The shell is part of its skeleton. It's vertebrae and such, run up through the shell. Go look at a cross-section of a turtle. Well, we drilled a hole in the turtle shell and put an anchor bolt in there and hooked it to a small rope and tied it to a stake. And so it was limited. It had limited ability to motate in the yard because we were afraid it was going to run off. Well, that wasn't out there a week or so, and it came up missing. It had escaped its fetters, and never to be seen again. Well, it was many years later. I think it was, we were down a couple houses away. I think it was a neighbor's yard, and I think I was maybe, they had a problem tree. I was cutting a tree down for them or something that they didn't have the ability to do. And they didn't want an arborist to come out there and bend them over for 10 prices. Arborists are not to be trusted either. Keep an eye on those guys. I found a turtle shell that was very, very similar to that one, and I always thought that the turtle didn't make it very far. But shout out to you, Micah. I think everyone likes turtles. But I would not recommend drilling your turtle shell. Personally, I wouldn't recommend having any sort of cold-blooded reptile animals. That immediately identifies you as a weirdo. I'm never comfortable being in the presence of snake or reptile people. If that's you, shout out to you, but don't expect an invitation forthcoming. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you to Overton and the middlemen, all the moderators. I really appreciate that. Again, my deepest apologies for missing those super chats. I was a man operating at the extreme limits of his ability with that dual stream, and I was afraid of messing it up and kicking John off again. So I left it alone. So if that was you, I do apologize. I'm sorry about that. We'll try to figure out a better solution. Beloved, please keep us in your prayers. We pray for you constantly. May God bless you and your families. We pray for you constantly and ask you to do the same for our family. And that's it. Lord willing, we'll see you all on tomorrow's live stream.